The frozen cavern. The night was dark, and the storm was merciless. Outside the mountains, heavy snow fell from the sky like endless white knives. The wind screamed through the rocks, a cold, sharp sound that could freeze any heart. Deep inside one of those mountains, a cavern waited. Its walls were made of ice, shining in the faint blue light that came through cracks in the rock. Inside, the air was heavy and freezing, colder than death itself. In that cavern sat an alien woman and her young daughter. The woman's skin was pale silver, almost glowing against the shadows, and her eyes were bright like small moons. Her daughter was tiny, her skin softer and lighter, her small hands shaking as she clutched her thin blanket. The woman wrapped her arms around her child, holding her close, trying to give warmth where there was none, but her body was just as cold. She could feel the little girl's heartbeat slowing, her lips turning blue, her breath weak. Every breath sounded like a whisper that could be the last. "Stay with me," the woman whispered softly, her voice breaking. "Do not sleep, little star. Stay awake." But the girl could not stop trembling. Her teeth chattered as she whispered back, "Mom, I'm so cold." The woman pressed her forehead to her daughter's and closed her eyes. She had run for so long, hidden for so many nights. She thought she could keep her daughter safe, but the storm was too strong, and the cavern was nothing but a prison of ice. The silence of the place was broken only by the sound of dripping water. Drops fell from the ceiling and froze on the ground, turning into small shards of crystal. Every sound echoed, making the cavern feel alive, like it was watching them. The woman's body shook, not from fear, but from the cold that stabbed through her bones. She tried to stay strong, but her mind screamed in despair. Was this how their story would end? Alone, in the dark, frozen to death in a place where no one would ever find them? Her daughter's small hand tugged at her arm. "Mom," the girl said again, weaker this time. "Will the sun come back?" The woman could not answer. She wanted to say yes, she wanted to promise that warmth would return, but her lips refused to lie. Instead, she kissed her daughter's head and whispered, "Close your eyes for just a moment. I will keep you safe." The girl's eyes fluttered shut. Panic rushed through the mother's heart. She shook her daughter gently. "No, stay awake. You must not sleep now." But the little one was too tired, too weak. The cavern grew darker, the storm outside louder, like the world itself was ending. Then, a sound. Not the storm, not the dripping water, something else. Footsteps. The woman's eyes shot open. She tightened her arms around her child and held her breath. Someone was out there moving through the tunnels. The sound was heavy, slow, but clear. It was not an animal. It was not one of the hunters. It was different. The footsteps came closer. Echoes bounced across the walls. Each step made her heart pound faster. Fear took hold of her. What if it was the hunters who had been chasing them? What if they had finally found her? She pressed her daughter tighter against her chest and looked around, desperate for a place to hide. But the cavern was bare. There was no place to go. No shadow deep enough to protect them. The sound stopped. Silence again. Only the sound of her daughter's shallow breathing filled the cavern. Then a light appeared. At first it was faint, a soft orange glow flickering on the icy walls. But it grew stronger, dancing like fire. The woman's heart skipped a beat. Fire meant warmth. Fire meant life. A tall figure stepped into view. A man, a human man. His hair was dark, his clothes torn from travel, and in his hand he carried a burning torch. The flames lit up his face, showing deep lines of exhaustion, but also eyes sharp and alive. The woman froze, not knowing if she should cry for help or beg him to leave. Humans were strangers, humans were dangerous, but humans also had fire. The man stopped when he saw them. For a long moment he said nothing. His eyes moved from the woman to the small, trembling child in her arms. His expression changed, hardness melting into something softer. The flames of his torch reflected in his eyes as he took one step forward. The cavern walls glowed with his light, chasing away the shadows. The alien woman tensed, ready to fight if she must, but she was weak, and her daughter weaker still. She could not win. The man's voice broke the silence. It was low, calm, and warm against the cold air. "Don't be afraid," he said. "I'm here to help." The woman stared at him, her breath caught in her throat. Help? From a human? Could it be true, or was it a trick? The child stirred faintly in her arms, her small eyes blinking at the glow of the fire. For the first time in hours, there was light, there was warmth. The cavern no longer felt like a tomb. It felt like the beginning of something else. But what? The woman did not know yet. She only knew that this man had come, just in time. The stranger appears. The flames of the torch painted strange shapes on the frozen walls. Shadows moved like ghosts, stretching long and bending as the man stepped deeper into the cavern. His boots crunched against the ice, the sound echoing far into the tunnels. The cavern was no longer silent. It now carried the rhythm of his presence. The alien woman's breath came fast and sharp. Her heart hammered as if it wanted to break free from her chest. She pulled her daughter closer, shielding the child with her body. Her silver eyes glowed faintly in the flickering firelight, locked on the human figure. The man stopped a short distance away, lowering his torch slightly, showing his face more clean. Arlie. His skin was pale from the cold, his jaw rough with days of travel. Snow still clung to his shoulders. He looked tired but not weak. His eyes, steady, alert, did not belong to a man ready to collapse. They belonged to someone who refused to surrender. For a long moment, no one spoke. The cavern was filled with nothing but the crackling fire and the soft, fragile breathing of the child. The man tilted his head, studying them. His gaze stayed on the girl longer than the mother. He noticed the trembling hands, the lips that had turned blue, the way her body shivered even against her mother's warmth. The woman expected judgment, disgust, or even fear. Instead, the man's eyes softened. He looked at them not as enemies, but as lives hanging by a single thread. "Don't be afraid," he said again, his voice calm and steady. "I will not harm you." The woman's lips tightened. Her voice came out low and sharp, like a blade hidden in the dark. "Why are you here? Who sent you?" The man shook his head slowly. "No one sent me. I was hunting for shelter when I saw the smoke from your fire earlier in the mountains. I followed the trail. And now?" He lifted the torch slightly. "I found you." The woman frowned. She had lit no fire. There had been no smoke. She thought he was lying. But then she remembered the strange light in the sky, the brief flash of energy when she had tried to use the last of her strength to shield her daughter earlier. Maybe he had seen that instead. Her suspicion grew. "You are human," she whispered bitterly. "Humans do not help us." The man's expression did not change. He stepped forward slowly, carefully, like someone approaching a wild animal. "Maybe not all, but I help." The woman tensed, but she did not move. Her body was too weak, her daughter too fragile. If she fought now, they would both die. The man lowered his torch to the ground and led something from his pack, a small pouch. From it, he poured dry twigs and flint onto the frozen floor. With practiced hands, he struck the stones together. Sparks flew, catching on the wood. In moments, a second fire burned brighter than his torch, filling the cavern with warmth. The alien woman's eyes widened. She had not felt real heat in days. The air shifted, the ice around them glowing orange, the shadows pushed back. She wanted to move closer, but fear held her frozen. The man extended a hand, not toward her, but toward the fire. His voice was firm, almost commanding. "Bring her closer. She needs this warmth, or she will not survive the night." The woman's lips trembled. She looked down at her daughter, whose eyelids fluttered weakly. Every instinct screamed at her not to trust a human, yet every beat of her child's fading heart told her she had no choice. Slowly, carefully, she shifted forward. She sat near the fire, her child pressed to her chest. The flames wrapped them in a fragile blanket of heat. The girl stirred faintly, a tiny sigh escaping her lips. The mother felt tears sting her eyes. For the first time in days, her daughter was not slipping further into the dark. The man sat across from them, the fire between them. He did not speak at first. He only watched, his face unreadable. Finally, he said, "You are running. From who?" The woman stiffened. She wanted to lie, but the firelight made her feel bare, as if the walls themselves demanded truth. "From my own people," she admitted softly. Her voice cracked as the words left her. "And if they find us, they will kill us." The man did not look surprised. Instead, he leaned closer, resting his arms on his knees. "Then you need more than fire," he said. "You need someone who will stand between you and them." The cavern fell silent again. But this time, the silence was different. Not cold, not hopeless. It was the silence before a decision that could change everything. The alien woman stared into the flames, her heart torn. Could she believe him? Could she let a human man, a stranger, walk into the center of her fight? Her daughter stirred again, whispering one word in her sleep. "Warm." The mother closed her eyes. For her child, she had to take the risk. When she opened them, the firelight showed something new in her gaze. Not trust, not yet, but something close. The stranger had appeared, and nothing would ever be the same. Fire and questions. The fire burned brighter now, filling the cavern with orange light. The ice walls reflected the flames, making it look as if the cavern had many fires dancing at once. The warmth spread slowly, chasing away the deadly cold that had been clinging to the alien woman and her daughter. The woman sat close, holding her child against her chest. She could feel life returning to the little body, small breaths becoming stronger. Her daughter's cheeks, once pale as snow, now carried a faint glow. Relief touched the woman's heart, but fear was still there, sharp and heavy. Across the fire, the human man sat silently. His torch lay beside him, forgotten, as he warmed his hands over the flames. The firelight painted his face in shadows and light, making him look both kind and dangerous at the same time. The woman's eyes never left him. Her instincts told her to be careful. She was weak, her daughter weaker still, but danger was danger, and humans were never safe. Finally, she broke the silence. Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper, but it carried the weight of suspicion. Why? The man looked up, his brow furrowing slightly. Why what? Why help us? She said firmly, her silver eyes flashing in the firelight. You are human. My people are hunted by yours, and yours are hated by mine. So why are you here making fire for us? What do you want? The man leaned back, resting on the cold stone wall. For a moment, he said nothing. His eyes stayed on the fire, as if the flames held the answer. Then he spoke slowly. I don't want anything, he said. I saw a child dying. That was enough. The woman frowned. His words were simple, too simple. No one did something without reason, not in her world. You lie, she whispered. The man gave a small laugh, but there was no humor in it. I don't have the strength to lie. Look at me. He lifted his arms, showing the rips in his coat, the scars across his skin, the tiredness in his eyes. Do I look like a man who came here with a plan? I'm barely surviving myself, but even a man like me knows when to act. That little girl. He nodded toward the sleeping child. She didn't deserve to die tonight. The woman's grip on her daughter tightened. His words touched something inside her, but she pushed it down. Trust was a luxury she could not afford. The fire crackled between them, filling the silence. Drips of water fell from the icy ceiling, hissing when they touched the heat. The cavern smelled of smoke now, sharp but alive. The man studied her for a long moment. Then his voice softened. What is her name? The woman hesitated. A name was power. To share it was to open a door. Still, she looked down at her daughter's fragile face and whispered, Lyra. The man repeated it quietly, almost with respect. Lyra, a strong name. The woman's eyes narrowed. Do not use it. You are a stranger. The man nodded once. He did not argue. Instead, he asked, And yours? Her lips tightened. She turned her gaze away toward the dark tunnels beyond the firelight. That is not for you to know. For the first time, the man smiled, faint but real. Fair enough. Then I will call you Mother, because that is what you are. And right now, that is all that matters. The woman blinked. His words were strange, but something about them carried weight. He was not mocking. He was not cruel. He was simply stating truth. Still, she did not let down her guard. And what are you, human? A soldier? A wanderer? A hunter? The man's eyes darkened. He stared into the flames for a long moment before answering. I was many things, he said quietly. But tonight, I am just a man who chose to walk into the cold. The woman studied him, trying to see past his words. There was pain in his eyes, hidden behind his calm voice. A story he was not telling. She wanted to ask more, but fear stopped her. Instead, she said, If my people find us, you will die too. Do you understand that? The man met her gaze across the fire. His expression was steady, unwavering. Then let them come, he said simply. I have already faced worse. The cavern seemed to grow colder at his words. The fire burned, but the shadows around them deepened. The woman felt a chill not from the air, but from the sense that this man carried battles inside him, battles she could not yet see. Her daughter stirred, murmuring softly in her sleep. The woman stroked her hair, trying to calm her. Then, without meaning to, she whispered, You are strange, human. The man gave another faint smile. I have heard that before. The fire crackled again, filling the silence. The woman stared into the flames, torn between fear and curiosity. Who was this man? Why had fate brought him here, to this cavern at the very moment her child was slipping away? For now she had no answers, only questions, and the night was long enough for many more. The mother's secret. The fire burned lower now, its flames softer but steady. The cavern walls no longer felt like frozen chains. The orange glow gave them shape, gave them warmth, gave them the illusion of safety. But the alien woman knew better. Safety was a lie. Her daughter, Lyra, slept quietly against her chest. Small breaths rose and fell, stronger than before. The child's body was still weak, but not fading anymore. The warmth of the fire had pulled her back from the edge of death. The human man sat across the flames. He had not moved for a long time. His eyes seemed distant, lost in some memory that belonged only to him. He was still a stranger, yet something in his silence was steady, almost protective. The woman watched him carefully. She felt torn. A part of her wanted to keep quiet, to remain hidden in shadows, to let the night pass with no words. But another part knew she owed him something. This man had brought fire when her hope was turning into ice. He had saved Lyra, if only for tonight. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Then, slowly, she spoke. "You should leave," she said softly. The man blinked, turning his eyes toward her. "Leave?" "Yes. If they find you here with us, you will die. They will kill you without hesitation." His gaze did not waver. "Who will kill me?" Her breath caught. To speak of it was dangerous, but she looked at her daughter, at the fragile face that had almost slipped into eternal sleep, and she knew the truth could not be hidden forever. "My people," she whispered. The man frowned. "Your people? I thought you were running from humans." She shook her head, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the firelight. "No, not humans. Not tonight, my own kind. They hunt us." The man leaned forward slightly, his expression hardening. "Why? Why would your people hunt their own?" Her throat tightened. Memories flooded her mind. Flashes of burning villages, screams of the innocent, the roar of soldiers marching under banners she once trusted. She closed her eyes, forcing the images away. "They call me a traitor," she said finally, her voice cracked like fragile glass. "And my daughter, a curse." The man's brows drew together. "A curse? She's just a child." The woman looked down at Lyra. A small tear slipped down her cheek as she brushed a strand of hair from her daughter's face. "Yes, a child. But she was born different. Stronger, brighter. They fear what she might become." She paused, swallowing hard, then whispered, "So they chose to destroy her before she grows. To destroy us, Bot." The cavern fell silent. The fire hissed and cracked, but its sound was drowned by the weight of her words. The man sat back slowly, letting the truth settle inside him. His jaw tightened. He did not look at her with pity nor with fear. He looked at her with the steady gaze of someone who had carried secrets of his own. "And you?" he asked after a long pause. "What did you do?" The woman's eyes lifted, meeting his across the flames. Her voice was low but filled with quiet strength. "I chose to run. I chose my daughter over their laws. I chose love over loyalty to a people who had lost their soul." Her hands trembled as she spoke, but her eyes did not break away. "That is my crime. That is why we hide in caves. That is why we freeze in the dark. Because I would rather die with her than live without her." For a moment the cavern seemed to breathe with her words. The fire flared as if agreeing with her defiance. The man's expression softened. He leaned closer, his voice steady. "That is no crime. That is what any mother would do." Her heart clenched at his words. No one had ever said such a thing to her before, not even among her own kind. But she shook her head bitterly. "You do not understand. They will never stop. They will search every mountain, every cavern, every world if they must. And if they see you with us, you will be marked too. You will not survive." The man's jaw hardened. His voice was calm but firm. "Then let them come. I'm not afraid." She stared at him, stunned. Not afraid? How could a human, alone in the ice, stand against hunters that even she feared? It made no sense. Yet when she looked into his eyes, she saw no lie. Only a fire as steady as the one burning between them. Her chest ached with something she could not name. Fear, hope, both at once. Lyra stirred in her sleep, mumbling softly, her small hand clutching at her mother's arm. The woman held her close, whispering in her language, words of comfort the human could not understand. But inside, her thoughts were not calm. They were a storm. This man was dangerous, not because he carried a weapon, but because he carried belief. Belief that frightened her, belief that maybe, just maybe, they did not have to face the end alone. She looked at him again, her silver eyes shining in the firelight. Her voice was soft, almost too soft to hear. "Perhaps," she whispered, "you came to us for a reason." The fire cracked loudly, as if answering her words. The secret was spoken. And now, nothing would ever be the same again. Danger. Outside. The fire burned low, its light softer now, but enough to hold the shadows back. The cavern was warmer, calmer. The alien woman sat with her daughter sleeping safely against her chest. Across the flames, the human man rested with his back to the stone wall, his eyes half closed but never truly asleep. For a moment, it almost felt like peace. But peace does not last long in a world filled with hunters. The woman's sharp ears twitched. A sound cut through the crackle of fire. Not the wind, not dripping water, something else, something alive. Her body stiffened. She placed a protective hand over her daughter and raised her gaze toward the dark entrance of the cavern. The sound came again, a faint clicking, slow and steady like claws tapping on stone. The man's eyes opened instantly. His hand moved toward the small blade tied at his belt. He had heard it too. The clicking grew louder, echoing through the tunnels outside. Then came a second sound, the crunch of heavy steps pressing down on snow. Many steps. The woman's silver eyes widened. Her voice came out as a whisper filled with dread. "They are here." The man frowned. "Who?" "Hunters," she breathed. Her arms tightened around Lyra. "They have found us." The cavern's air grew heavier. The warmth of the fire felt thin, fragile, as if the shadows were already swallowing it whole. The man stood, his torch in hand again, and moved quietly toward the entrance. He pressed himself against the icy wall, peering into the dark. The flames flickered across his face, revealing focus and determination. Outside, the storm had calmed. Snowflakes still fell, but the wind was no longer screaming. The silence of the night made the approaching sounds clearer, too clear. Low growls echoed through the air. Shapes moved in the distance, slipping between rocks and snow. Their outlines were monstrous, tall figures with glowing eyes, moving with purpose, and with them came beasts, four-legged creatures whose spines glowed faintly blue, their sharp teeth catching the moonlight. The man gritted his teeth. This was no wandering patrol. This was a hunt meant for them. He stepped back inside. "There are many," he said, his voice low. The woman's face went pale. She knew the hunters would come, but not so soon, not so close. She pressed her daughter tighter to her chest, trying to keep her small breaths hidden. The man crouched beside the fire, his eyes sharp. "If they smell the smoke, they'll know we're here." Her heart pounded. She reached toward the fire, ready to scatter it with her bare hands if she must. But the man caught her wrist gently. "Wait," he said. "If the fire goes out, she will freeze again." He nodded toward the sleeping child. The woman hesitated, torn between fear and need. She looked at her daughter's fragile face, then back at the man. "What do we do?" He looked at the dark cavern beyond the firelight, the twisting tunnels that stretched deep into the mountain. His jaw tightened. "We move. Now. Deeper inside. If we stay here, they will trap us." The woman shook her head. "You don't understand. The tunnels are dangerous. Many lead nowhere. Some collapse. We may never find our way out." The man's voice hardened. "Better lost in the dark than dead in the open." Her breath caught. She knew he was right. The hunters outside were too many. If they stayed, they would be surrounded. The clicking noise came again, closer this time. The beasts were sniffing, searching. A growl rolled through the cavern like thunder. The woman stood, her daughter cradled carefully in her arms. The man grabbed his torch, kicked snow over the fire to dim it, and motioned toward the tunnel behind them. "Go," he whispered. The woman hesitated for only a heartbeat. Then she moved, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the darkness as she stepped into the deeper passage. The man followed close, his torch lighting the way, his blade ready at his side. Behind them, the cavern entrance filled with shadows. Dark figures paused, their glowing eyes scanning the space where the fire had burned only moments before. One of the beasts snarled, sniffing the air, its spines flaring with light. The hunters had arrived, but their prey was gone. Deeper into the mountain, the woman whispered to the man, "They will not stop. They will chase us until the end." The man glanced at her, his face grim but steady. "Then we make sure the end belongs to us, not them." The tunnel walls closed around them, the air colder, the shadows thicker. The sound of hunters echoed behind, following, unrelenting. The chase had begun. A risky escape. The tunnel was narrow, its walls pressing close like frozen jaws. The human man led the way, his torch lighting each step, while the alien woman followed with her daughter held tightly in her arms. The girl's breath was faint but steady, her head resting against her mother's shoulder. Behind them, echoes of the hunters grew louder, the sound of claws scratching stone, the deep growls of the beasts and the sharp rhythm of armored footsteps. The mountain itself seemed to carry their noise, bouncing it through the hollow passages. The woman's voice was tense, almost shaking. They are close. Too close. The man looked back, his eyes hard. Then we moved fast. He pushed ahead, but the ground was rough, slippery with ice. Every step threatened to betray them with a crack of breaking frost. The woman struggled to balance, one arm holding her child, the other brushing against the cold walls to steady herself. The tunnel split into two paths ahead. One sloped downward, dripping with water, the sound of an underground river echoing faintly. The other climbed upward, jagged and narrow, with sharp rocks that could cut unprotected hands. The man hesitated only for a moment, then pointed to the higher path. This way. If we go down, they'll trap us at the river. The woman frowned. The higher tunnels may collapse. They are unstable. The man's torch flickered, his face set with determination. Better unstable than certain death. Without waiting, he started climbing the narrow path. The woman followed, clutching her daughter tighter. Her sharp nails scraped against the rocks as she pulled herself upward. Each step felt like a battle, but she did not stop. For her child, she could not stop. Behind them, the hunters entered the cavern they had left. Growls filled the air as the beasts sniffed the ground. The echoes of their claws grew sharper, nearer. The man reached a ledge and extended his hand down to the woman. "Give her to me," he said quickly. Her silver eyes flashed with distrust. "No, she stays with me. You can't climb with her. Trust me. I won't drop her." For a moment, the cavern seemed to hold its breath. The woman looked at her daughter, then at the man. The hunter's footsteps thundered closer. Her heart pounded like a drum. She had no choice. Slowly, carefully, she placed her daughter into his arms. His grip was firm, steady, not a tremor of weakness. He held the girl against his chest as if she were his own. Only then did the woman climb, her hands bleeding slightly as sharp rocks cut into her palms. She pulled herself up beside him, then took her child back quickly, her arms wrapping around the girl like a shield. The man said nothing. He only nodded and pushed forward again. The tunnel twisted, rising higher, but the air grew thin and sharp. The sound of falling stones echoed behind them. The hunters were not far. Suddenly, the tunnel shook. A low rumble rolled through the rocks, dust falling from the ceiling. The woman gasped. "They are using their weapons. They will collapse the path to trap us." The man gritted his teeth. He quickened his pace, dragging his torch along the walls to light the way. "Then we don't give them the chance." The path narrowed further, until it was little more than a crack in the stone. The man squeezed through, his shoulders scraping ice. The woman followed, her daughter pressed tightly against her chest. Then came the sound of hounds behind them, loud, sharp barks mixed with growls. Blue light flickered in the distance, glowing spines moving closer. The beasts had caught their trail. The woman's breath came fast. Panic rose in her chest. "They will catch us." The man stopped, turning back toward the narrow passage. His torch lit his determined face. "No, not if I slow them down." She stared at him, her silver eyes wide. "You cannot fight them alone." He gave a small, grim smile. "I don't need to fight them, just delay them." He pulled a small pouch from his belt. Inside were shards of black powder, something he had carried for survival. He poured it along the narrow walls of the passage. Then, with the torch, he lit it. The fire roared suddenly, rushing through the crack, a flash of light and heat exploding in the dark. The tunnel shook as the powder ignited, smoke filling the air. The hunters' growls turned into shouts of anger. The woman shielded her daughter, her heart racing as rocks fell behind them. The passage collapsed, sealing the way. The sound of hunters grew faint, muffled by the heavy stone. For a moment there was silence. Only the sound of the child's breathing and the faint drip of water echoed in the tunnel. The man coughed from the smoke but forced a smile. "That will keep them back. For now." The woman stared at him, shocked. "You risked your life. For us." His eyes met hers, steady and calm. "I told you. I won't let them take her." Something stirred inside her chest, a spark she had not felt in a long time. It was not trust yet, not fully, but it was no longer fear. She looked down at her daughter, then back at the man. Her voice was soft, almost trembling. "You are strange, human. Very strange." He shrugged, the faintest of smiles on his lips. "So they tell me." And together they pressed deeper into the mountain, where darker secrets and greater dangers waited. The chase. The tunnel was dark and narrow, the air heavy with dust from the collapse behind them. The alien woman held her daughter close, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the dark. The human man walked ahead, his torch burning low but steady, its light pushing back just enough of the blackness to see the path. For a short while there was silence. Only the sound of their footsteps and the child's soft breaths filled the cavern. The woman allowed herself to believe they were safe, at least for the moment. But safety never lasted long. The mountain groaned as if it were alive. Then came the sound she feared most. Claws. Sharp, scratching claws on stone. The hunters were not stopped. Somehow they had broken through the collapse. Their beasts howled, the sound carrying through the tunnels like a warning. The woman's heart clenched. They are coming. The man stopped, turning his head to listen. The echoes grew clearer. Fast steps, many of them, moving closer. His jaw tightened. "Then we run." He grabbed her hand without asking, pulling her forward. At first she stiffened, but then she tightened her grip, holding her daughter with one arm and his hand with the other. To get her, they ran. The torchlight jumped wildly, making shadows dance across the walls. The tunnel twisted sharply, forcing them to stumble around corners. Behind them, the hunters' shouts grew louder, mixed with the growls of beasts. Blue light flickered in the distance, the glow of the hound's spines. The little girl stirred weakly, whispering in her sleep. The woman pressed her cheek against her daughter's head. "Stay with me, little star," she murmured, her breath ragged. The man pulled them onward, his movements fast but careful. His eyes searched the walls, looking for another path, an escape. Then he spotted it, a narrow crack in the stone barely wide enough for a person. He turned quickly. "This way!" They squeezed inside, the woman shielding her child as the jagged rock scraped against her arms. The man followed close, lowering the torch so its light wouldn't give them away. The tunnel was tight, forcing them to crouch. Their breaths came fast, the air thin and damp. For a moment they moved silently, their footsteps muffled on the soft ground. But the hunters were skilled. The beasts sniffed the air, their growls vibrating through the rock. The clicking of their claws came closer, sharper. Suddenly the tunnel opened into a larger cavern. Stalactites hung like teeth from the ceiling, and an underground lake shimmered faintly in the torchlight. The water was black and still, like a mirror of night. The man's eyes scanned the cavern. "We can use the water. The scent will break their trail." The woman frowned, fear flashing in her eyes. "The lake is deep. If it pulls us down—" He cut her off, his voice firm. "It's our only chance." He knelt and dipped the torch quickly into the water, killing the flame. Darkness swallowed them whole. The woman gasped softly, clutching her child tighter. The man's hand found hers in the dark. "Trust me," he whispered. Before she could answer, the hunter's howls echoed down the tunnel. They were near, very near. The man stepped into the icy water, pulling her gently wet. "Him." She shivered at the cold, her breath sharp, but she followed. The water rose past their knees, their waists, then their chests. The girl whimpered softly, stirring in her sleep, but the woman whispered soothing words into her ear. The man pressed a finger to his lips, even though she could barely see him in the dark. Together, they waded deeper until the water covered them. They held their breath and slipped beneath the surface. The world went silent. Only the sound of their hearts pounding filled the black water. Moments later, the hunters entered the cavern. Their glowing hounds sniffed the air, growling low. Blue light spread across the cavern, reflecting on the water's surface. The hunters searched, their voices sharp, their weapons drawn. One of the hounds padded to the edge of the lake, its glowing spines rising. It sniffed the water, growled, then stepped back uncertainly. The trail was gone. Beneath the water, the woman's lungs burned. Her arms tightened around her child, her body trembling. Panic filled her chest. She could not hold on much longer. The man reached for her, his grip firm, steady. In the darkness, he guided her upward, just far enough to steal a silent breath against the cavern wall, hidden in shadows. Then he pulled her under again, keeping them safe from sight. Above, the hunters growled in frustration. Their leader spoke in a harsh voice. "They are close. Spread out. We will find them." The footsteps moved away, fading into other tunnels. The hounds howled again, their cries echoing far into the mountain. At last, when the sounds were distant, the man guided them back to the surface. They gasped quietly, filling their lungs with precious air. The woman pressed her daughter against her chest, tears mixing with the cold water on her cheeks. The man leaned close, whispering, "We're not safe yet, but we bought time." The woman stared at him, her silver eyes shining in the faint glow of distant blue light. For the first time, she felt something stronger than fear, hope. But hope was fragile, and the chase was far from over.